Hey, all, Baruch Levi B here from Soul Centered. Thanks for tuning in. I am coming to you today live from not my office, my wife's office. So you might notice a different backdrop. Hopefully that won't be true for long. We had a little water problem in our basement, but we're getting it fixed. And I got a teenager sleeping in my office. So I not even going to try and wake her up because that's almost virtually impossible. If you have teenagers, you know what I'm talking about. So here we go. I want to talk to you about the Passover Seder we just had and how it relates to the Enneagram. You know, it was really amazing. If you tuned in for my last video, or you can listen to a podcast I did last week on Passover, Easter, spring equinox, and the Enneagram, talked a bit about, I shared that we were going to be experimenting with a Enneagram Seder, the Jewish festive meal that we have on Passover. And one of the reasons why I did it is because we had a bunch of teenagers and 20 somethings. My daughter invited friends, and my son, who's in college, invited all his buddies. And you got to engage people where they are. It's hard enough to run a Passover Seder and keep, all generations engaged, but it's especially hard with that teenage, early 20 something, because let's just be honest, they're not all that interested. So I decided we were going to do a little bit of a twist. We did a traditional-ish Seder, and in the middle of it, where it's time to tell the story of the Seder, the Passover meal, the story of the Exodus, which is really what the Passover story is built around, and the journey from slavery to redemption. We pivoted. And instead of just telling the traditional story, which we did, we then went into the Enneagram. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Enneagram is this picture that you're looking at right here. It's 9 basic personality types, if you will, but I'm going to kind of try and dispel that idea. It's 9 different ways that we can show up in the world. Now, there's more than this. There's actually 27. There's probably 54. There's an infinite number of combinations. But let's just say there are 9 defaults. And everybody thinks they're special. And, you are special. But the other person that isn't exactly special. Yes, you have a fingerprint. It's uniquely you. And you have a soul print that's uniquely you. But the way that we at least react, right? The defaults, the patterns, they're predictable. This is built on an ancient system of geometry and mathematics, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. It's not random that there are 9. There's a reason why mathematically. But the bottom line is there are 9 fundamental different ways to react. And that's why my work is the defiant spirit, to defy your number, because you're not your number, right? When I talk about the Enneagram, people get freaked out as if they're going to be trapped, put into a box, defined, limited, labeled. God forbid. I mean, the work that I do is about defying all kinds of numbers, titles, roles, masks. And that's what I want to talk about. The Enneagram is not about you are a number. It's you should discover your number so you can defy your number. Well, that's what we talked about at our Seder. So I had everybody take the Enneagram assessment. And you can jump over to my website at defiantspirit.org and take a free assessment. But you don't need to. You can also listen to videos and discover your own. It's really at the end of the day for you to decide, not for a test to decide. And I had everybody either take a test or tell me what they think their Enneagram type was. And then I put a little summary on a piece of paper, and we went around and we talked about, is that who you are? And at first it's, yes, it's who I am. But then we started to realize, or people started to realize, it's not who I am. It's how I present. And we started talking about the word persona, which means mask. And persona obviously is personality. And personality is not who we are. It's the mask we wear. It's not bad. It's necessary. We need to wear masks. And we talked about, Moses went up the mountain for 40 days, 40 nights to commune with God. And it says that he was beaming light. And when he came down the mountain, the people couldn't handle his light. And so he put a mask on. And that was a necessary act of compassion, because people can't handle all of you, not just the Enneagram 4s, but anybody. We cannot bear all to just anybody. We shouldn't. That isn't being vulnerable. That's being inconsiderate. If I go to the Starbucks, which I do almost daily, and I use the barista as my confessional, right? Something wrong with me in that situation, deeply, but there's something wrong with dumping on somebody who's just there to pour my double tall soy latte, right? That's what she signed up for. She didn't sign up for me, nor did she earn the right to hear Baruch Halevi's, deepest confessions. That's not her role. That is where I share with my wife, with people close to me, right? As do you. Intimacy is earned and it's bestowed. It shouldn't just be dumped. Well, the Israelites couldn't handle that. So Moses puts on a mask. He puts on a persona, puts on his Enneagram number, and withholds some of who he is and shows some of who he is. That's necessary. Our personalities, we need them. However, the danger is when we start believing it's who I am, right? When I am this mask, I see this a lot, let's say with Enneagram 3s, the achiever. These are the CEOs and the Hollywood actors and the performers of all kinds. These are the successful, beautiful people oftentimes. And that's fine until they start believing it's who I am. I am my bank account, right? 3s struggle with their material possessions, their achievements. It's who I am. When I counsel Enneagram 3s who are retiring or retired, they struggle more than any other type in my experience. Maybe not more than any other type, but they struggle at the top of the heap. Why? Because if I am what I do and then I stop doing it, who am I? And so they go through this period of either deep struggle and inner work to find the true them that's beyond the production value, or they die, literally. I mean, I have done many funerals where particularly men, around 70, 75, somewhere in there, retire, and that's all they've ever known is working. And then they don't know what to do with themselves, and they don't know how to reinvent themselves, and they believed it's who I am. I see more clergy get themselves into trouble, either trouble or alienate themselves and distance the people they're trying to lead by believing they're the mask. I am the rabbi. I am the father, the priest. I am the minister. No, it's not who you are. It's what you do, right? It's a part of who you are, but it's not who you are. Trust me. I went through this. I am the rabbi. I start believing my own bullshit, right? Believing the mask. You need people in your life to check that mask, to make sure you understand it's a role I'm playing. It's a persona that I'm wearing. It's a necessary one. I'm serving people as a surgeon, right? Wearing the surgeon's mask, not as the person's about to go under, start to share with them my marital problems, right? That's not wearing the right mask. You put on the surgeon's mask. I got this, conveying confidence. As that person goes under, the last thing I want to hear from my surgeon is doubt, right? I don't want to hear their fears. Lie to me. I want you to lie. Put that mask on, surgeon, literally and figuratively. Play your part. But when you go home, because I counseled surgeons, they're some of the hardest people to counsel because it's hard to take the mask. When everybody reveres you as a god in flesh and blood, it's hard to resist not believing it. See it with all kinds of professionals. I see it with parents, empty nesters who have defined themselves for so long by, I am the mom, I am the dad. Deeply important role. Don't get me wrong, but it's not who you are. Because if it is, and that's all you are, then when the kids leave, God forbid, I've counseled people whose kids have died, then who are you? Then you're nothing. But that's not true. You are more than just the Enneagram 2, the helper, right? Or the Enneagram 7. This is the enthusiast, the person who likes to have fun and go out into the world and be limitless and free. It's who I am. Well, what happens when life challenges you and causes you to stand still and look at yourself, take responsibility? You have to be more than just the mask. So we went around the Passover table and everybody talked about how this is who they are, but it's not the complete them. It's how they react. It was fascinating to see different takes on different types. We had almost every Enneagram type represented. But for instance, the Enneagram 1 at the table, and again, mostly 20 somethings or teenagers. So, pretty powerful when you can engage that age group in a deep conversation like this. But the Enneagram 1 was talking about how he is the reformer, the perfectionist on a good day. But on a bad day, that perfectionism takes over his life. I'm an Enneagram 8, or I react like an 8. I don't fully understand this. I can only imagine how much perfectionism is going on all day, every day in this young man's life, where it's always, you're not good enough. You're not doing enough. It's not perfect. And he says he has to stand guard against that. That's his Pharaoh, his taskmaster. It enslaves him. It incarcerates him. He has spent so much of his life feeling small. By the way, that's the word for Egypt. Mitzrayim means small or narrow or confined or constricted. That's slavery. And he talked about how he has really worked hard to bring down that taskmaster, to give himself more permission to be the 7. You see that line between the 7 and the 1? That 7 is the lighter side of him. And he's really working hard. He said this year, his pathway to liberation or freedom is to develop that 7 joy, fun, less responsible. Now, we had an Enneagram 7 at the table. At first, he didn't want to participate. Why? Because 7s don't like to be labeled or limited. That's their thing. And he said, I don't want to be limited or labeled. I said, but that's your slave. That's your Pharaoh. And it hit him. If you spend all your time not wanting to be limited and wanting to be free, well, then are you free, or is freedom your slavery? And freedom for him was his slavery, his servitude. And so he he started to talk about how he has a hard time taking responsibility, and that his pathway back is the line to the 1, the opposite direction of the 1, to take responsibility. And the two of them started talking about opposite sides of the spectrum. For 1, their energy type is enslaving them, and the other, they need what the other has, and vice versa. We had an Enneagram 8, like me, but she's a social 8. She lives for cause, for justice, standing up for the underdog. She talked about how that is liberating and it's oxygen when she has a cause to fight for. But when she doesn't, she starts becoming intense and taking it out on people or situations that aren't worthy, right? And it causes havoc. And 8s do this. They take that big energy and they can create a lot of noise, do a lot of damage. And so she's working on bringing down the intensity, bringing down her need to fight. We had a few Enneagram 4s at the table who talked about how they become enslaved to emotion. Enneagram 4, the individualist, is really the most, the deepest from an emotional perspective. And they tell themselves quite often that there's no such thing as too much emotion. And what they were talking about was that's not true. Emotion can ruin you if you don't stand guard against it, if you don't check the facts sometime against the emotion, because the emotion is the source of our stories that we start weaving, and they get themselves into a lot of trouble because of the drama that can create. And so they talked about their pathway to freedom this year is really to stand guard against too much emotion, to challenge their emotion, to make sure that it matches up with and aligns with reality. The list goes on. The message is clear that each one of these is a persona, a mask that we wear, and a necessary mask that we wear. But the question isn't whether we have a number. We have a number. We all do. We have a core type. We have a core mask. The question is, do we have a number, or does the number have you? Who's making the decisions? Who's driving the bus? If you aren't consciously choosing what mask you're wearing, when you're wearing it, why you're wearing it, and whether or not you want to take it off, then I would argue your number has you. You're not here to be a number. You're not here to add one more number to your life. The Enneagram and the way that I utilize it is about discovering your number, your primary pathway, so you can defy it and have access to all of them when you want on your terms, so you can stop reacting and start responding. That's the work that I'm doing. The Defiant Spirit is now a program called Defy Your Number. It's an Enneagram starter program. Almost launched, so keep checking over at defiantspirit.org. But any day now, you'll be able to purchase a do-it-yourself video-based Enneagram starter program, everything you need to discover your number so you can defy your number and live your spirit. Jump over to defiantspirit.org. Till the next time, shalom, salam, namaste. Peace.